we'll see how this setup does. I thought I'd take a second and chat about the word cringe. Okay, so let me hit the word cringe. I sometimes think to myself, when I talk about the Constitution, do I make people cringe? Yeah, which I guess is like a modern term for makes them uncomfortable. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, you know, I don't know and I don't care. The people, social media influencers who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a lot of them, most of them, make me cringe when they talk about the Constitution. Rod Meldrum is surprisingly good at talking about the Constitution. I shouldn't say surprising at all. What he does is he brings in so many people, he's going to know what's what and be able to recognize truth from error, you know. So he's incredibly impressive. But I'm going to go ahead and call out some people real quick here, hopefully not in a mean way. There's the Hayden Carrol one that I recently brought up where he mentions that the Supreme Court is like the equivalency of having a first presidency and Council of the 12 in the last days to help us know God's scriptures and their meanings and the doctrine. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness gracious, this guy hasn't studied the doctrine. Which, you know, okay, so let's look at, by the way, how important is the doctrine? Let's look at President Oak's talk from a few years ago, defending our divinely inspired Constitution. He talks about all this experience that he had, tons and tons of experience as somebody working with the Constitution, and he says most important experience has been my 37 years as an apostle of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. President Benson said we should look to the tradition of the founders and to the prophets and the scriptures for understanding how the Constitution is supposed to work. David O. McKay said something similar. So when people say that the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of the meaning of the Constitution, or they're the equivalent of First Presidency and Council of 12, I'm like, no, dude, that is so bad, because the furthest from the sovereign is the Supreme Court. The sovereign is we the people. The closest to the sovereign are state legislatures. And that's exactly who has the power to change the application of the way the Constitution is applied. Check out Article 5 of the Constitution. Then I'll bring up Halverson. Halverson, what does he do? I can't remember the name of his channel. But really smart scriptorian guy. And when he was trying to pay tribute to the Constitution, he says they wrote it in with even an elastic clause. Look, the concept of an elastic clause, that's modern terminology. I don't think they even discussed elastic back then. The necessary and proper clause, we're talking about Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and he didn't even point out which article and section and clause it was. He just said they wrote in an elastic clause, which allows them to do all sorts of things. That's not true. And so again, he made me cringe. I was like, no, please stop teaching false doctrine. We're supposed to be some of the best defenders of the Constitution like Joseph Smith was. And that was really bad, because all it says is necessary and proper to the foregoing powers. And that's two adjectives, necessary. So it has to be necessary to the foregoing powers, which the foregoing powers would mainly be basically Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 2 through 17, with Clause 1 and Clause 18 being bookends, obvious bookends. Has to be necessary, okay? And then it has to be proper. So, but it has to be necessary to those foregoing powers. It can't just be necessary because you like the idea. So that one made me cringe. The lack of the knowledge of the Constitution. You guys, again, the most important knowledge of the Constitution that President Oak said he got it from his 37 years as an apostle. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about Ezra Taft Benson and how much he might have made you cringe or something. Maybe you need to consider what President Oaks said. What was President Benson's career like, or his apostleship like? Okay? All right, keep that in mind, guys. Seriously. Next one that makes me cringe, I mean, really badly, honestly, this one's really bad, is the Christian Homestead guy. I mean, I think he does some great stuff. He's clearly trying to make a living off of YouTube, which I don't know. That makes me cringe right there, first off. But the big one is he's always talking about the Scripture Citation Index, and all he does is search the Scripture Citation Index, and he finds the answers, easy answers for everything, I swear. Right? No, dude, look, the Constitution, the Constitution Heavenly Banner, for example, by President Benson. There were 3 other speakers that spoke on that same topic that same season. And then to top it off, 3 iterations of that talk, a general conference version, the BYU version, and then the book version. And then to top it off, you had Elton Perry, Dallin H. and then Dallin H. has recently reiterated in defending our divinely inspired Constitution some of the same principles he talked about back then. So more forcefully, he sounded more like Ezra Taft Benson this time around. And then, so anyhow, Christian Homestead guy, he likes to point out that the white horse prophecy is a false prophecy or whatever. That's fine. I think I agree. Ezra Taft Benson didn't talk about the white horse prophecy. He talked about Constitution hanging by a thread, that it wouldn't be saved in Washington. What does that mean? I don't know exactly what that means. That it would be the responsibilities of members of the church and just citizens who love the Constitution to step up to the plate. That's why I do this channel, because he basically put that responsibility on us. He says, we're not going to tell you how to do it. You just got to start doing it, you guys. So that's like the one gospel topic where I feel confident just reading it because of what they said, okay, and commenting on it authoritatively. This Christian Homestead guy says, oh, this Constitution hanging by a thread thing, it's not a thing, stop talking about it. Are you kidding me? How many times has it been documented? President Benson was sent into the vault of the St. George Temple by President Kimball. Inga's saying hi to you guys. Inga, come here, buddy. And anyhow, so that dude really makes me cringe when he talks about the Constitution. Leave it alone, dude. If you don't know what you're talking about, leave it alone, man. Your scripture citation index isn't cutting it for you, man. So Morgan Philpot, I think he's awesome, by the way. I've loved so much of his connections to the scriptures. A lot of the same things that I've seen. But he recently said this Constitution is dead. We're not going to save it, you guys. And I thought to myself, dude, isn't that embarrassing? Because, like, you know, Brigham Young said, he told Abraham Lincoln, we stand by the Constitution, and the nation that founded the Constitution, we're not seceding. The reason was because of the Constitution. President Oaks says all members of the church have a responsibility, whether or not they're from the United States, to defend the United States Constitution. President Benson directed his talk, Our Constitution, or defending the Constitution, a Heavenly Banner. He directed it to all members of the church. It wasn't just for American members. So this is the important thing. Those guys, that's a lot of guys being wrong, Morgan, if you think the Constitution's dead and it's not supposed to be saved. Wilford Woodruff, my goodness gracious, that was, that's somebody who was alive during the Civil War, all that kind of stuff. And the extent of his talking on the Constitution, my wife got me the compilation of his discourses and writings, and oh man, they're fantastic. So no, that's wrong too. And so now Morgan doesn't try to make a channel that makes money or anything like that, but he did make me cringe when he said that, like he knew what he was talking about. I was like, dang, dude, go back and read the prophets on the Constitution. Stop looking so much at the prophecies of what's happening right now to the point that you're ignoring a responsibility we've been clearly given. So I like him a lot. Met him once and was happy to meet him, but no, that makes me cringe when somebody says something like that. So anyhow, you guys, make sure you know what you're talking about. The tradition of the founders is what we've been told to follow again and again. I mean, they were the ones that were allowed to visit the St. George Temple, you guys. Talk directly to Wilford Woodruff and say, hey, why hasn't our work been done? That's kind of a big deal. Okay, and then the other one is President Oaks pointed out, he says his 37 years as an apostle has been more important for knowing the Constitution than anything. So read what the prophets and apostles have said. Understand that to a certain degree we are accountable. Men are accountable for our actions in relationship to government. Okay? If we allow our government to become a tyrannical government, we're accountable for allowing that to happen to the next generation, because it's not just our generation that's affected. And if we're accountable for pushing on this generation inappropriate, unconstitutional actions, again, it's us. We're accountable for it. To a certain degree, therefore, them, it's been argued by elders of the church, general authorities, that affects our priesthood, because that's an exercise of unrighteous dominion through our government. So I don't know about this whole word cringe, you guys, but it really makes me cringe when people don't know an 8-page Constitution, at least of the basics of it. Get to know your stuff, or don't comment on it at all, dudes. Stay off of it. Make sure you read the prophets extensively, not just like excerpts, not just cuts. Go and get the Constitution, a Heavenly Banner. Read that whole talk. Review in detail Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution by President Oaks. If you're not going to do that, I would say stay off of it, dudes. Stop commenting on it, because you're doing more harm than you're doing good. All right, thanks for watching, you guys.